There are truths about the human soul so dark, so painful, that most people spend their entire lives running from them. But Jung, Nietzsche, and Schopenhauer dared to face them. This is not just philosophy. This is a journey through shadow, suffering, and transformation. The voices of three great minds reveal what most of us are too afraid to admit. What follows is the complete Axis Mundi series, The Dark Truth of the Human Soul. 5 chapters combined into one full documentary. Their visions are united in a single film. The Shadow. It is not just a theory. It is not just a clever metaphor you find in psychology books. The shadow is alive. It breathes inside you, and whether you like it or not, it already rules your life. Think about the moments you can't explain, that sudden burst of anger you regret seconds later, the jealousy that poisons your thoughts when a friend succeeds. The way your heart races with shame as you replay mistakes from years ago, mistakes no one else even remembers. You tell yourself, I'm fine, I'm in control, but deep down you know you're lying. Because the shadow is still there, hidden behind your smile. It whispers when you're alone. It bends your choices. It shapes your desires. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. The shadow doesn't wait for your permission. It doesn't care about your morals or your plans. It decides long before you do. How many times have you asked yourself, why did I say that? Why did I hurt the person I love? Why did I ruin something good? That wasn't your conscious mind. That was the shadow pulling the strings. So let me ask you this. Are you really the master of your life? Or are you just a puppet in the hands of the part of yourself you refuse to face? Carl Jung called the shadow the dark twin of the personality. It is everything you have buried, everything you reject, everything you deny, the thoughts you're ashamed of, the emotions you try to hide, the impulses you pretend don't exist. You think you've killed them, but you haven't. You've only pushed them deeper into the dark basement of your mind. And here is the paradox. The more you try to bury the shadow, the more power you give it. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can keep it down for a while, but the deeper you push it, the harder it fights to explode back to the surface. And when it finally does, it hits you in the face with a force you can't control. That's why people erupt in rage over small things. That's why jealousy leaks out in sarcasm. That's why fear paralyzes you at the very moment you need courage. The shadow never dies. It waits. It grows. It learns your weak spots. You thought you buried it, but in reality, it buried you. You don't need to look far to see the shadow at work. It's in your daily life. Why do you sabotage yourself just before you succeed? The exam you didn't prepare for, even though you had time. The opportunity you turned down because you told yourself you weren't ready. That's not laziness. That's your shadow making sure you stay small. Why do you fall for toxic partners over and over again? You know they're wrong for you, but you're drawn to them like a moth to flame. That's not bad luck. That's your shadow reenacting an old wound you never healed. Why do you smile politely when you secretly despise someone? Why do you feel hatred boil in your chest while your lips say, "No, it's fine"? That's not self-control. That's the shadow wearing a mask in public. Your shadow writes the hidden script of your life, and if you don't read it, it will keep writing the same tragedy, page after page. Your dreams are not random. They are the stage where your shadow performs, the monster you run from, the stranger who wears your face, the voice that whispers from the dark. That is not meaningless. That is the shadow demanding to be seen. Jung discovered this during his descent into the Red Book. He thought he was losing his mind, but what he found was a deeper mind. He saw visions. Philemon, the wise old man, Salome, the dark feminine, Elijah, the prophet, all symbols of the unconscious. It wasn't madness, it was initiation. Jung realized the shadow is not the end of sanity, it is the beginning of transformation. And if you've ever woken up from a nightmare drenched in sweat, your heart pounding, you know the feeling. The shadow is knocking. And every time you ignore it, the knocking grows louder. What happens when you refuse to face your shadow? Ignored anger becomes blind rage, erupting at the worst moment. Repressed envy becomes silent sabotage. You drag others down because you can't admit what you want. Buried fear becomes paralysis. You stand still while life moves on without you. And the truth is brutal. If you don't master your shadow, someone else's will master you. That manipulative boss, that toxic lover, that corrupt leader, they are not smarter than you. They just serve their shadow instead of denying it. And their shadow will dominate yours if you remain blind. Look around the world. Wars, corruption, betrayal. Do you think it's reason guiding those choices? It's the shadow of millions colliding in chaos. The shadow always leaves clues, but most people are too afraid to see them. 3 signs reveal its presence. Irritation. The trait you despise most in others is usually the very trait you've repressed in yourself. Sabotage. That inner voice that whispers, "Don't try. You'll fail anyway." That's not caution. That's the shadow holding you down. Obsession. The thoughts that haunt you, no matter how much you try to silence them. That's the shadow scratching at the walls of your mind. Follow these clues and you'll see it. Ignore them and you'll wonder why your life keeps falling apart. Stand in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes. Now say out loud the things you never admit. I hate him. I want what she has. I am terrified of failing. If your chest tightens, if your stomach turns, if you want to look away, that is the shadow revealing itself. Most people run. They shut the light, distract themselves, go back to pretending. That's why their shadow owns them. But a few, a rare few, stay. They face the trembling, the shame, the disgust, and in that act of courage they begin to take back power. Here's the secret Jung discovered. The shadow is not your enemy. It is raw energy waiting to be transformed. Your anger can become strength, the fire that drives you to act. Your envy can become ambition, the compass pointing you to what you desire most. Your fear can become freedom, the reminder that beyond terror lies growth. The shadow is a monster when you deny it, but when you face it, it becomes a source of power. The energy you once wasted in repression returns to you as strength. You are standing at a crossroads. One path. Pretend you are only light, deny the darkness, bury it deeper. But the cost is high. You will live as a puppet. The other path, face the shadow, bleed in the process, endure the shame, but emerge whole. This is why Jung risked everything, why he faced his visions even when people thought he was insane. He knew integration was the only way. So I'll ask you now, will you keep burying it, or will you turn and face the thing inside you that already controls your life? The shadow is not here to destroy you. It is here to complete you. Ignore it, and it consumes you. Face it, and it transforms you. But remember, this is only the beginning. Because if Jung warned us about the shadow within, Nietzsche warned us about the herd outside. If you do not become dangerous, the herd will swallow you whole. That is the next chapter. Subscribe and like. because tonight you met your shadow, but tomorrow you face the herd. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort, but Nietzsche warned us. Comfort is the most dangerous poison. It creeps into life quietly. It makes us believe that safety is the highest goal. But safety is not freedom. It is a cage. The man who chooses comfort over struggle will never know what he is capable of. He will never discover his strength. He will never discover who he truly is. From the moment we are children, society whispers the same commands. Be polite, stay in line, do not disturb others, and most obey. They blend into the crowd. They follow the same paths, repeat the same words, live the same empty routine. But what is the cost of such obedience? It is the loss of courage, the loss of individuality, the slow decay of the soul. Nietzsche saw this as the tragedy of modern man, a life reduced to comfort, a life stripped of risk, a life that no longer reaches for greatness. Look around. Most people live as part of the herd. The herd is safe. The herd gives the illusion of belonging, but the herd also suffocates everything that makes you unique. The herd worships comfort because it fears pain. It clings to safety because it cannot endure risk. And in that choice, it becomes weak, fragile, dependent. When crisis comes, the herd collapses. It does not resist. It does not fight. It simply obeys, waiting for someone else to decide its fate. But the herd has another instinct. It despises the one who refuses to conform. When you stand apart, you force the herd to confront its own cowardice. Your existence becomes a reminder of their wasted potential, and so they turn against you. Nietzsche believed this is why true strength is rare. Most would rather dissolve into the safety of the many than endure the solitude of becoming strong. The question is not whether the herd is wrong. The question is whether you are willing to separate yourself from it. When Nietzsche spoke of becoming dangerous, he was not calling for violence. He meant something far more radical. A dangerous man is the one who cannot be bent, the one who refuses to surrender his values to the pressure of the majority. To be dangerous is to carry within you a strength that others cannot easily touch. It is to live in such a way that the herd no longer defines who you are. Freedom, for Nietzsche, was never given. It was earned. It was wrestled from struggle, from solitude, from the discipline of facing life without illusions. The man who is harmless is always at the mercy of others. He is tolerated, used, and forgotten. But the man who is dangerous, he cannot be ignored. His presence demands respect, even from those who despise him. Why? Because danger means independence. It means you are no longer controlled by the promises of comfort or by the fear of rejection. The dangerous man can walk away. He can stand alone. And in that solitude, he discovers a freedom that the herd will never know. Nietzsche understood that society thrives on keeping men weak and dependent. The state, the workplace, even relationships, all reward compliance. But the moment you no longer need their approval, you become unpredictable. And that unpredictability is power. The herd fears this kind of man because he is beyond its control. To be dangerous is not to destroy, but to stand unshaken in a world built on compromise. It is to carry yourself in such a way that no threat, no rejection, no exile can strip you of who you are. Nietzsche believed that only in this state can a man call himself free, not free in the shallow political sense, but free in spirit, untouchable, unbroken, alive in the fullest meaning of the word. Think of the man who never says no. He avoids conflict at all costs. At work, he accepts every demand. In relationships, he suppresses every frustration. People call him kind, but behind that word hides something darker. He is harmless. And because he is harmless, he is invisible. No one respects him. No one fears losing him. And in time, no one even notices him. Now think of another man. He does not shout. He does not threaten. But he sets clear boundaries. At work, he refuses to be exploited. In love, he will not tolerate dishonesty. He is calm but firm. And though some resent him, others cannot help but respect him, because he carries danger. The danger of being someone who cannot be easily bent. We see this contrast everywhere. In politics, the harmless leader is a puppet. The dangerous leader shapes history. In art, the harmless creator repeats what is safe. The dangerous creator breaks the form and opens new paths. Even in families, the harmless father raises children who despise his weakness. The dangerous father raises children who know that strength is possible. Nietzsche was not romanticizing cruelty. He was warning us that harmlessness is a disguise for weakness, and weakness always invites domination. But danger, the kind of danger born from independence, forces the world to treat you differently, not as decoration, not as property, but as a man who stands on his own ground. For Nietzsche, becoming dangerous was never the final step. It was the beginning. The dangerous man breaks free from the herd, but Nietzsche's question was, what comes after freedom? Here enters the figure of the Übermensch, often mistranslated as Superman. But what Nietzsche meant was something deeper. The Übermensch is the man who does not inherit his values from the crowd, nor from tradition, nor from the past. He creates his own. Most people live on borrowed beliefs. They repeat moral codes they did not choose. They follow traditions they do not understand. But the Übermensch rejects imitation. He dares to write his own law of life. He becomes, as Nietzsche put it, the meaning of the earth. This is why danger was necessary. Without strength, you cannot separate yourself from the herd. Without independence, you cannot create new values. Only the man who has endured solitude, who has faced suffering without breaking, is capable of shaping a vision beyond what he inherited. Nietzsche believed that most will never reach this point. They will cling to comfort, to safety, to borrowed morals. But the few who rise, those who are willing to endure the weight of freedom, they carry within them the possibility of transformation. The Übermensch is not a myth. It is a challenge, a demand that each of us asks. Will I remain a shadow of the herd, or will I create a life that belongs only to me? Nietzsche's warning was never comfortable to hear. He was not offering an easy path, but exposing a truth that most would rather avoid. The herd cannot make you free. Only strength, independence, and danger can. To choose this path is to choose solitude. It is to accept struggle instead of comfort, clarity instead of illusions. And it is in that choice that the possibility of freedom begins. But Nietzsche was not the only one who saw freedom bound to suffering. In the next video, we turn to Schopenhauer, who believed that love itself is only another mask for pain. Every love story you know ends the same way, in pain. Think about it. The songs, the films, the poems, they all speak of love as the highest force, the answer to all human suffering. And yet, behind every vow, every promise, every kiss, waits the same shadow: loss, betrayal, emptiness. We are told that love will complete us, that it will give us safety, meaning, even eternity. But Schopenhauer saw something far darker. To him, love was not salvation. It was nature's most cunning illusion, a veil placed over your eyes so that you walk willingly into the very suffering you would otherwise resist. And maybe you felt this, the dizzying high of falling in love, only to find yourself later standing in ruins, wondering if any of it was real. The very person you believed would heal you becomes the one who wounds you most. Here is the brutal truth. If love were truly about happiness, the world would not be filled with so many broken hearts, divorces, silent resentments, and lonely nights. If love were what we imagine, it would not lead us to despair. So why does it? Schopenhauer's answer is chilling. Because love is not designed for you. It is not your story. It is the story of life itself, and life cares nothing for your happiness. Love is the mask the will wears, and behind that mask, the will demands only one thing: that life continues, no matter the cost to you. So when you fall in love, what you feel is not freedom, it is captivity. You are not choosing, you are being chosen, moved like a piece in a game older than humanity itself. Most people never want to see this. They would rather live with the illusion than confront the truth. But if you've ever asked yourself why love always seems to hurt, if you've ever wondered why the deepest intimacy can turn into the deepest wound, then you're already closer to the truth than most. And here's my promise. In this video, we will walk beyond the veil and face the truth that almost no one dares to speak. The truth that love does not save you. Love exposes you. Love uses you, and it always ends in pain. But this is only the first layer of the problem. We live in a world obsessed with love. From childhood, we are fed the myth: find the one who completes you, and you will finally be whole. Stories end with weddings, songs end with devotion, films fade out on the promise of forever. But reality tells a different story. Half of marriages collapse. Affairs rip apart families. The same couples who once swore eternal loyalty can barely stand to sit in the same room years later. And it isn't just about divorce or betrayal. Even the best love stories carry the seed of tragedy. One dies before the other. The passion fades. The dream becomes routine. In the end, pain always arrives. So what's happening here? Why does something that feels divine in the beginning so often feel like hell in the end? Schopenhauer's answer is as radical as it is devastating. He believed that love is not about happiness, not about joy, not even about you. Love is the instrument of something greater, the will to life. The will is blind. It doesn't care about your dreams or your peace. It only wants one thing: that life continues. And for that, it needs you. When you fall in love, what you're really feeling is not your freedom. It's biology chaining you to its purpose. Think about it. You believe you've chosen someone because of their smile, their soul, the way they get you. But Schopenhauer would tell you this: it wasn't really you who chose. It was the species, whispering through you, forcing you to pick the partner most likely to carry its project forward. That's why love feels overwhelming. That's why it blinds reason, why it shakes your body, why it drives people to madness. The will needs you to be deceived. Because if you saw the truth, that love is not about eternal bliss, but about reproduction, you might resist, and nature cannot allow that. And this is where the tragedy begins. The very force that draws two people together is not concerned with their happiness. Once the will gets what it wants, it leaves them, and the couple is left staring at each other, confused, empty, sometimes even hostile. You thought you were writing a love story, but you were playing a role in a script written by nature long before you existed. And here's the bitter price. When love collapses, the pain is not an accident. It is built into the design. Because you were never meant to be fulfilled. You were meant to be used. Most people can't bear this thought. That's why they fall in love again and again. Not because they are foolish, but because illusion is easier than truth. We would rather suffer another heartbreak than face the reality that love itself is a trap. But this, Schopenhauer insists, is only the beginning. Because the will does not stop at stealing your joy. It goes further. It convinces you that the very suffering you endure is meaningful, that pain is proof of depth, that heartbreak makes you human. And here is the darker question. What if even that belief is just another trick? At this point, we need to strip away the last illusion. You may still believe love, despite its dangers, is at least yours, an expression of your soul, your freedom, your unique taste. Schopenhauer destroys this comfort. He writes, "Love is the will of the species, disguised as the will of the individual." Let those words sink in. When you fall in love, it feels like the most personal decision you'll ever make. Yet Schopenhauer says it is the most impersonal. What you mistake for your deepest choice is in fact the species choosing through you. This is why love overwhelms logic. Think back to when you were in love, how reason failed, how you excused the inexcusable, how you lost yourself. Why does love make intelligent people act like fools? Because reason never had control. It was never your decision. It was biology wearing the mask of romance. That is why the stakes feel so high, why heartbreak feels like death. The will cannot allow you to treat love lightly. It must feel cosmic, eternal, sacred, or else you might resist. And here's the cruelty. The will's goal is reproduction, not happiness. Once the chain of life is secured, your passion fades. The very intensity that brought you together becomes the emptiness that drives you apart. This explains why so many relationships collapse, not from lack of effort, but from a strange, unspoken shift. The magic is gone, and no one can explain why. Schopenhauer would say, because the will has moved on. Look at the modern world. Dating apps turn attraction into an endless scroll. People chase the one, only to feel disillusioned months later. Divorce rates climb. Even celebrities who seem to have it all, wealth, beauty, power, cannot escape the same pattern of obsession followed by collapse. It is not that they are weak. It is that they are human. And to be human is to be a vessel of the will. But here lies the paradox. The more intense the love, the greater the suffering. And this is not a bug in the system. It is the design. Think of Romeo and Juliet. We call it the greatest love story ever told, but it is a story of death, despair, and waste. That is why it resonates. Because unconsciously, we know love ends not in salvation, but in loss. Or think of your own life. The relationship you thought would last forever. The person you swore you couldn't live without. Where are they now? Perhaps they're gone. Perhaps they've changed. Perhaps you have. And what remains is not a happily ever after, but a scar. Schopenhauer would say, of course, because the will never cared about your forever. It cared only about the continuation of life. Your suffering was collateral damage. And yet, here is where the deception deepens. Because even in heartbreak, we cling to the belief that pain makes us deeper, more human, more alive. But what if even this belief is another trick of the will to keep us submitting again and again? That is why Schopenhauer's vision is so heavy. It does not flatter us. It does not tell us we are free or that love makes us divine. It tells us we are enslaved. That behind every love poem and every wedding vow stands the same blind, ruthless force. And the question you must face is this: if love is just the mask of the will, then what is the point of giving yourself to it at all? But before you answer, we must descend even deeper into the lives of real people and the examples that show us how this truth plays out, not in theory, but in the flesh of our existence. Philosophy can sound abstract, but Schopenhauer's truth about love is not just an idea in a book. It's written into human lives everywhere. Look around and you'll see the pattern. Think of a couple who began with fire in their eyes, promising to die for each other. They gave everything, abandoned friendships, sacrificed stability, believed they had found eternity. And yet, years later, they are strangers living under the same roof. The passion has dried into silence, the once sacred intimacy now replaced with resentment or boredom. Why? Because the will has already taken what it wanted. It drew them together for its purpose. And once that purpose faded, so did the illusion. They believed their love belonged to them, but it never did. Or think of the family. Two people fall in love, swept away by passion. They marry, they have children. For a while, everything seems right. But slowly, the relationship bends under the weight of responsibility. The bond is no longer about the lovers. It is about survival, about raising the next generation. The will has achieved its design. The parents remain together not because of eternal romance, but because of the practical machinery of life. And if they do separate, what is left is often bitterness, broken homes, and scars on the very children who were once the supposed proof of love's triumph. Again, the happiness of the individual is sacrificed to the will of the species. Now let's enter a darker room. The dynamic of the empath and the narcissist. The empath believes love is salvation. They give endlessly. They pour out their heart. They sacrifice themselves. The narcissist consumes, demands, manipulates. At first, the empath believes they can heal the narcissist, that their devotion will transform cruelty into tenderness. But over time, they find themselves drained, their love weaponized against them. Schopenhauer would say this too is no accident. The will has paired opposites for its own experiment. One overflows, the other devours. Neither finds peace. Both are broken. And perhaps you recognize yourself in this story. Maybe you have been the one who loved too much. Maybe you were the one consumed. Finally, step back and look at society itself. Entire cultures are built on the myth of eternal love. Fairy tales end at the wedding. Religions sanctify marriage as if it were divine. Pop culture saturates us with the message that love conquers all. And yet, behind the curtain, the statistics tell a different tale. Divorce, loneliness, cycles of heartbreak. People falling in and out of relationships like moths, burning on the same flame. This is not failure, it is the structure. The myth of eternal love exists because society needs people to keep playing the game. The will cannot function without fresh believers, and so every broken heart is replaced by another hopeful lover stepping into the same cycle. The stage is reset, the script replayed. And maybe as you listen, you feel a sting of recognition. Maybe you're remembering the one who shattered you, the one you thought would be forever. Maybe you're thinking about the nights you begged for love that never came, or the emptiness that followed what once felt divine. If so, you are not alone. You are living the truth Schopenhauer uncovered, that love is not yours, it is not for you. It is the will using you. For Schopenhauer, everything is ruled by the will, not reason, not morality, not even love as we imagine it, but a blind, endless force that drives all life. The will has only one command: continue. It doesn't care who suffers, who breaks, who despairs. It devours happiness, burns through joy, and leaves behind only more striving. That's why he believed life is essentially suffering. Love is just the bait. Once we are caught, the trap closes. This is a vision of despair. And if we stopped here, the picture would be unbearable. But philosophy never stops at despair. It uses despair as the doorway. Carl Jung shows us another dimension. If love exposes us, it is because intimacy rips away our masks. The closer someone comes, the more they awaken the parts of ourselves we want to hide: our jealousy, our rage, our fears, our shadow. That's why love wounds so deeply, because it doesn't just break your heart, it reveals who you are when all pretenses collapse. Jung teaches that the shadow must be faced. Love forces it to the surface. And so, even when love ends in pain, that pain is not meaningless. It is the mirror that shows you what you would rather not see. Maybe that's why heartbreak cuts so sharply, because it is not only the loss of the other, but the revelation of yourself. And then comes Nietzsche with his thunder. Where Schopenhauer saw resignation and Jung saw integration, Nietzsche saw a challenge. What will you do with the pain? For him, the answer was not escape, but transformation. To look at the cruelty of love, at the betrayal of the will, and to still affirm life. To say yes even to the suffering. This is the path of strength. To love not because it saves you, but because you are strong enough to face the wound. To accept that love ends in pain, and to embrace it anyway. Nietzsche called this the amor fati, the love of fate, the courage to say, even if it destroys me, I will not turn away. Most people cannot do this. They cling to illusions. They tell themselves stories to soften the blow. They need love to be eternal, or at least to appear eternal. But a rare few can look at it directly. They can see that love is suffering and still step into it with open eyes. Not because they are blind, but because they are awake. This is the transformation, from being used by the will to confronting the will, from being dragged by the current to choosing to swim in it knowingly. And maybe this is you. Maybe you've already felt that ordinary love cannot satisfy you, that behind every romance lies a silence too heavy to ignore. If so, know this: you are not broken. You are not cursed. You are awakening. You are beginning to see what philosophers have whispered for centuries, that love's beauty is bound to its cruelty, and that suffering is not the end of the story, but the beginning of transformation. Most people will never hear this truth. They will drown themselves in distractions, chase illusions, or cling to shallow comforts. But if you are here, listening, it means you are ready for something heavier, ready to see through the mask, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. But the question remains: if love always ends in pain, then what do we do with that pain? Do we collapse under it? Or do we turn it into strength? That is where we turn next. So we return to the beginning, to the question you may have asked your whole life: why does love always hurt? Schopenhauer gave us the most brutal answer: because love was never meant for you. It belongs to the will, and the will does not care if you bleed. Jung revealed the deeper layer, that love wounds us because it strips away our masks, forcing us to face the shadow we would rather deny. And Nietzsche challenged us to go even further, to not only endure this cruelty, but to affirm it, to say yes to the wound, to the betrayal, to the pain, because it is through this fire that we are burned clean of illusions. Every great love, no matter how sweet, carries its ending inside it. Every vow whispers its own betrayal. Every kiss is already touched by loss. That is why love hurts, because in its beauty lies its cruelty, and in its promise lies its end. But this does not mean love is meaningless. On the contrary, it means love is the most dangerous teacher we will ever meet. It uses us, yes, but in being used, we are forced to awaken. The truth is this: love does not save you. Love exposes you. It exposes your illusions, your shadow, your strength, and in that exposure lies the possibility of transformation. So I leave you with this. If you knew from the beginning that love will always end in pain, would you still choose it? Would you embrace the wound, knowing it will scar you, but also knowing it will shape you? Or would you turn away, choosing safety over fire? Because this is only the first battle. Pain is not the end, it is the door. And in the next chapter, we will step through that door. We will explore the rare power of people who feel too much. Why the very sensitivity that makes you suffer may also be the secret to your strength. Why what breaks you today could one day make you unbreakable. Most people will never see this truth. They will drown in distractions, hiding from themselves. But if you are still here, it means you are ready. Ready to look into the darkness without blinking. Ready to carry the weight of philosophy, not as theory, but as survival. In a world of the dead, the one who feels too much carries the rarest power. Think about it. Most people walk through life as if asleep. They hide behind masks of indifference, acting as if nothing can touch them. They laugh at shallow jokes, follow the herd, and drown themselves in distractions so they never have to feel the weight of existence. And then there are the others. The ones who feel everything too deeply. A word cuts them like a knife. A silence between lovers feels like abandonment. A lie in someone's eyes burns brighter than a scream. They carry the moods of entire rooms inside their chest. They notice what others never see. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've been told all your life, you're too sensitive. As if your feelings were a weakness. As if your ability to feel was something shameful, something to bury. But what if it's the opposite? What if this very sensitivity, the thing you curse, the thing that isolates you, is not your curse at all, but your hidden strength? Carl Jung saw something that most people never dare to consider. He believed that the sensitive, the empathic, the ones who suffer too much, are not broken. They are the instruments of the collective unconscious. They are the ones through whom the hidden truth of humanity emerges. That's why you can't live like the others. That's why you suffer when they laugh. That's why silence feels heavy and lies burn in your veins. Because you are not blind. You were never blind. The world is full of people who feel nothing. They survive by becoming numb. But numbness is not life, it's death in slow motion. And if you feel too much, it means you are still alive in a world that has already gone cold. So let me ask you, if your sensitivity is destroying you, what if it could also save you? What if what you see as weakness is the very power that makes you rare? Because here's the truth. Those who feel too much are the only ones capable of breaking the illusion of this dead society. But that path is not easy. It will hurt you, burn you, break you. But in the fire, something stronger emerges. And that's what we will uncover in this journey. Not the cheap comfort they sell you, not the cliché that sensitivity is a gift, but the brutal, hidden reality, why your pain is not meaningless, and how it can become the very force that lifts you above the world of shadows. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover is something most people will never dare to see. We live in a world that worships the strong mask and despises the open wound. From childhood, you are told to toughen up, don't cry, don't take things so personally. Society has no patience for sensitivity. It demands efficiency, obedience, performance. And if you cannot harden yourself, the world will eat you alive. So what happens to the ones who feel too much? They become the quiet ones in the room, the ones who carry everyone else's burdens in silence. They notice when something is wrong, but nobody listens. They sense when someone is lying, but are told to stop overreacting. Their gift becomes their prison. And this is not just about emotions. It's about survival. Because in a society where numbness is celebrated, sensitivity is a crime. The masses protect themselves by rejecting those who see too much. The empath becomes the scapegoat, the one blamed for caring, the one mocked for feeling, the one abandoned because their depth makes others uncomfortable. Carl Jung had a word for this: the shadow. Every individual has one, but so does society. And society's shadow is this: it fears those who remind it of its dead heart. Sensitive people expose the lie. They show that beneath the smile and the mask, most lives are empty. And for that, they are punished. Look around you. How often have you been made to feel wrong just for being the way you are? How often have people told you you're too much, when in reality, what they meant was, you see too clearly. The cost of this is devastating. Sensitive people burn out faster. They collapse under the weight of others' expectations. They retreat into isolation because they cannot handle the cruelty of indifference. Some sink into depression, some numb themselves with substances, some give up on life altogether. And maybe you felt this, that your gift is also your curse, that every time you open your heart, the world cuts deeper, that every time you speak the truth, others recoil as if you were the problem. But here's the thing. This is only the first layer of the truth. The world wants you to believe that your pain is meaningless, that your sensitivity is a flaw, something to be corrected, medicated, silenced. But Jung saw deeper. He knew that those who feel too much are not broken. They are the very ones chosen to reveal what others cannot bear to see. And this is where the paradox begins. The very thing that makes you suffer is also the seed of your transformation. But most people will never see this. They will drown in distraction, numb their pain, and live as hollow shells. So the question is, will you continue to believe the lie that your feelings are weakness, or will you dare to uncover the hidden truth behind your suffering? Because if you stay with me, we'll strip away the mask, and what you will see is far more dangerous, far more powerful than anything you've been told. At this point, we need to cut through the illusion. You might still believe your sensitivity is just an unfortunate trait, something genetic, something that makes you too soft for this world. But Carl Jung would disagree. For Jung, sensitivity was not a defect, it was a doorway. Jung wrote that each of us is more than an isolated being. We are vessels through which the collective unconscious expresses itself. Our dreams, our fears, our intuitions, they are not just personal accidents. They are fragments of humanity's hidden story rising through us. And here is the shocking part. Those who feel too much are the ones most open to this deeper current. They are not weak, they are receivers. They absorb what others deny, repress, or hide. They feel the despair that others bury. They notice the truths that others cover with lies. This is why their lives feel heavier. They are not just carrying their own pain, they are carrying the shadow of the entire community. Most people confuse two things, being harmless and being sensitive. Harmlessness is weakness. It means you lack teeth, you lack force, you cannot defend yourself. But sensitivity is not harmlessness. It is raw awareness, often overwhelming, but also incredibly powerful if harnessed. Think of it this way. A sword that cuts sharply also wounds the one who wields it, unless they learn mastery. The empath is that sword. Untrained, they cut themselves. Trained, they cut through illusions. Jung himself wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For the sensitive person, this is doubly true. Their unconscious is not just personal, it is saturated with the collective. They are like lightning rods for what humanity refuses to face. Think about today's world. Endless scrolling, shallow connections, fake happiness on display. The masses numb themselves with distractions, social media, alcohol, consumerism. And then there's you. You feel the emptiness beneath it. You see the hollow eyes behind the smiles. And because you see it, you suffer. You might even envy those who can ignore reality so easily. But here's the paradox. The very reason you suffer is the same reason you have access to truths that others will never see. So let me ask you, if you are the one who feels the most, is it really a weakness? Or is it proof that you have been chosen? Chosen to carry a deeper truth, chosen to see through the lies, chosen to awaken where others remain asleep. Stay with me, because in the next part I'll show you exactly how this truth plays out in real life, through relationships, families, and entire societies. And when you see it, you'll realize, maybe you've lived this story your entire life without knowing. Philosophy is nothing if it does not touch real life. So let us step down from theory and see how this hidden power of sensitivity unfolds in the everyday world. Because what Jung described is not just an abstract truth. It is a reality written into the lives of people like you. Imagine an office full of noise, deadlines, and ambition. Most people focus only on themselves, fighting for promotion or recognition. But then there's one person who feels every shift in the room. They notice when a colleague is exhausted, when the boss is anxious, when the tension rises. They step in, soothe conflicts, carry burdens, and quietly absorb the stress of the entire team. At first, everyone admires them. They call them the glue that holds us together. But after months, the weight becomes too much. This person collapses, not because they are weak, but because they carried more than anyone else dared to feel. And when they break down, the office moves on as if nothing happened. Their gift became their downfall because no one taught them how to protect it. Now imagine relationships. Sensitive people are magnets for narcissists. Why? Because a narcissist seeks constant fuel, and the empath gives endlessly. The empath senses the wounds in their partner. They feel the unspoken pain, the hidden rage, the insecurity. They rush to heal, to comfort, to forgive. And the narcissist takes. They take until nothing remains. You may have lived this story, the cycle of love and abuse, the confusion of giving everything and still being told it's not enough. The ache of realizing you were not loved for who you are, but for the energy you provided. This is the cruel paradox. The very depth of your feeling becomes the tool of your own destruction, unless you learn to transform it into strength. In many families, there is one child, the sensitive one, the one who notices when mother cries behind the closed door, the one who senses father's rage before it explodes, the one who takes on the chaos to keep peace. They become the emotional pillar, though they are still only a child. And years later, they carry this same role into adulthood, always the mediator, the healer, the one who sacrifices. But who heals them? Who carries their burden? Most of the time, no one. History remembers them differently. We call them poets, visionaries, prophets. People like Van Gogh, who painted the unbearable beauty of the world while being consumed by it. Or Dostoevsky, who captured the torment of the soul with such intensity that readers still feel it centuries later. They were not strong in the worldly sense. Many were fragile, unstable, even broken. But their sensitivity was a lens through which humanity saw itself more clearly. They turned their curse into a mirror. Maybe this sounds familiar. Maybe at work, in love, in your family, you are the one who feels too much. The one who carries more than you should. The one who sees too clearly and suffers for it. If so, you are not alone. And you are not weak. You are part of a rare lineage of people whose sensitivity is not an accident. It is a calling. But here's the problem. As long as you remain unaware of its true nature, it will destroy you. That's why, in the next part, we will lift our eyes from these examples to the larger vision, the cosmic role of sensitivity in Jung, Nietzsche, and Schopenhauer. And there you will see why this rare power is not just personal, but part of the structure of existence itself. We've seen the pattern, the worker who carries everyone's stress, the lover who gives until they collapse, the child who becomes the silent pillar of the family, the artist who bleeds beauty onto the canvas. But what if we step back? What if we lift our gaze from the personal and see this sensitivity as part of a greater design? For Jung, those who feel too much are not simply fragile souls. They are the ones chosen for the path of individuation, the dangerous journey of becoming whole. Why dangerous? Because to individuate means to confront not just your conscious self, but your shadow, your hidden fears, your unspoken rage. Sensitive people are already closer to this shadow because they cannot numb themselves like others. They are forced to feel the contradictions, the wounds, the darkness. And this is precisely why they have the chance to grow beyond the ordinary. Most people avoid the shadow forever, living half-lives. But the sensitive, if they endure the fire, can integrate what others never dare to face. Nietzsche would not call sensitivity a gift. He would call it a challenge. Because in his eyes, life is not about comfort, but about transformation. The Übermensch is not born from numbness. He is born from those who suffered the most and still said yes to life. Nietzsche's vision is brutal. Pain is not something to escape. It is the crucible in which greatness is forged, and the sensitive are the ones thrown into the fire first. They are scorched by reality in ways others cannot imagine. But precisely because of this, they have the potential to rise higher, to turn pain into power, to turn wounds into wisdom. And then there is Schopenhauer, the philosopher of despair. For him, sensitivity is proof that you are closer to the raw pulse of the will to life, that blind, merciless force driving existence. Most people dull themselves against it. but the sensitive feel it directly. The suffering, the endless striving, the futility of desire. That's why their lives feel heavier. They are not shielded by ignorance. Schopenhauer's vision is bleak, yet even here lies a paradoxical strength. To see life without illusion is a kind of freedom. Sensitive souls carry the pain of existence, but in doing so, they are closest to truth. So here is the larger vision. Jung says you are forced toward individuation, toward becoming whole. Nietzsche says your suffering can make you strong if you embrace it. Schopenhauer says your pain is the truth of existence itself. Together, they reveal something extraordinary. Sensitivity is not weakness, it is destiny. It marks you as one who must walk a path most will never dare. A path through shadow, through fire, through despair, toward a form of strength and clarity that numb souls will never know. But be warned, this is not a path for everyone. Most people will continue to numb themselves, to hide in distraction, to laugh at shallow things. They will never face what you feel every day. And that is why you must ask yourself, will you continue to curse your sensitivity, or will you recognize it as the sign that you were meant for something more? Because what we have uncovered here is something few can bear to hear. Your pain is not a mistake. It is the sign of your deeper role in existence. In the final part, we will return to you, to the simple, brutal conclusion. Sensitivity can destroy you, or it can make you into a leader of souls in a world that is spiritually dead. And we will ask the one question that only you can answer. So we return to the beginning, to the question you've carried your whole life. Why do I feel so much when others feel nothing? The answer is brutal, but clear. You feel more because you see more, and you see more because you are meant to carry a truth that others cannot. Your sensitivity is a double-edged sword. Left unguarded, it will wound you again and again. It will make you the scapegoat, the victim, the one who collapses under the weight of others' cruelty. But if you accept it, if you learn to channel it, it becomes power. The rarest power in a world of numb souls, the ability to feel, to see, to awaken. This is not the soft gift of comfort. It is the hard gift of clarity. And clarity will make you dangerous. Because once you see the world as it really is, you can never again be controlled by its lies. Look around. Most of humanity is already gone. They scroll endlessly, laugh without joy, desire without love, consume without meaning. They are corpses that keep moving, shadows that call themselves alive. But you, because you feel too much, you are proof that life still burns, and that burning comes with responsibility. You can smother it, join the dead, and numb yourself forever. Or you can fan it into flame and become the one who carries light in the darkness. Do not mistake me, this is not a destiny for everyone. Most people cannot bear the burden of sensitivity. They call it weakness, medicate it, silence it, hide it. But if you are still here, listening, it means you are one of the rare few who can bear it. And that rarity is not an accident. It is a calling. Your pain is not meaningless. It is the sign that you were chosen for a higher path. So now the question is yours. Will you keep cursing your sensitivity, letting it destroy you? Or will you embrace it as the rare power that makes you alive in a world of shadows? Because once you decide, nothing will ever be the same again. But know this, sensitivity alone is not enough. To survive in this world, to rise above it, you must go further. Nietzsche warned us. To live with open eyes and an open heart is not safe. If you are sensitive but harmless, the world will devour you. To endure, to lead, you must become dangerous. And that is where we go next. In the next video, we will uncover why Nietzsche believed that the one who feels must also become the one who can fight. Why sensitivity without strength is a curse, and why the future belongs only to those who dare to carry both. Nietzsche warned, most people don't belong to themselves. They belong to the herd, and maybe you feel it too, surrounded by people but still a stranger. If you always feel like you don't belong, maybe it's because you were never meant to. Society calls this weakness. Nietzsche called it the first sign of awakening. This world is built for safety, sameness, comfort. Refuse to shrink into the box, and the herd will notice. In the next minutes, why you were never meant to blend in, how the herd quietly punishes you, and how outsiders turn loneliness into strength. So what happens when you stop pretending you belong? From the very beginning, you felt something was different. In school, you didn't laugh at the same things everyone else did. The conversations that made your classmates light up just left you silent. Later, at work, the chatter about sports, parties, or TV shows felt like noise you couldn't connect to. Even at home, around people who were supposed to know you best, you carried thoughts you couldn't share out loud. So you asked yourself, what's wrong with me? Why does it feel so easy for others to belong, to slip into groups, while you keep finding yourself standing on the edge? They share a language, a rhythm. You only find silence, and the silence is heavy. The truth is harsh, but clear. Society hates difference. The herd survives by sameness. One rhythm, one voice, a single pattern everyone can follow without thinking. If you stand out, even quietly, they notice. And once they notice, they push you back. Not always with violence. Sometimes with small comments, a cold look, a hint that you should tone yourself down, enough to remind you that you don't belong unless you bend. Nietzsche had a word for this: the herd instinct, the instinct of the many to protect comfort, safety, and sameness. It promises belonging, it promises approval, and those things feel good. Who doesn't want to be accepted? But here's the cost. The moment you surrender to the herd, you trade away your individuality. You stop living as yourself and start living as a copy. That's why you feel the way you do. Not because you're broken, not because something is wrong with you, but because you can't fully vanish into the crowd. You can't kill the voice inside that wants more. And the herd senses that. They see it even when you don't say a word. And for that, they quietly resent you. So every time you've been rejected, ignored, or told to just be normal, it wasn't proof that you were weak. It was proof that you couldn't completely surrender, that you were unwilling to erase yourself just to belong. And that leads to the question Nietzsche leaves hanging in the air. If you don't belong to the herd, what are you meant for? When you live outside the herd, the first thing you feel is loneliness. It doesn't come as a choice, but as a consequence. You stop pretending, and suddenly the distance between you and others becomes visible. You sit with friends and realize they are speaking a language you no longer share. You listen to family and feel like their worries belong to a different world. The noise around you grows louder, but none of it reaches you. This loneliness can be brutal. It's not just being alone in a room. It's being surrounded by people and still feeling unseen. It's laughing along with others while knowing your laughter doesn't come from the same place. It's sharing a meal but tasting only the silence in your own head. That kind of loneliness cuts deeper than physical isolation because it tells you something simple but terrifying. You are not like the rest. Nietzsche understood this feeling. He lived it. He walked away from academic circles, broke ties with friends, even cut himself off from the woman he loved. He chose the path of an outsider because he refused to betray his own mind, and the price he paid was solitude. But for Nietzsche, solitude wasn't only suffering, it was also the furnace where individuality is forged. When you're outside the herd, you lose the easy comfort of belonging. You lose the background noise of approval. And in the silence that remains, you meet yourself. That silence can be unbearable at first. You might try to fill it with distractions, with shallow pleasures, with anything that numbs the weight of being different. But if you endure it long enough, the silence starts to change. What first felt like emptiness begins to feel like clarity. Most people never experience this. They stay in the herd because they fear loneliness more than anything. They'd rather be accepted for who they are not than rejected for who they are. But the outsider doesn't have that option. He carries the wound of separation, and in that wound lies his chance to grow. Think of the loneliness as a test. It asks, will you break under the weight of isolation, or will you use it to build strength? If you run from it, you fall back into the herd where sameness smothers you. If you face it, you learn that loneliness is not a prison, but a forge. In solitude, you discover your own voice, your own rhythm, your own law. This is why Nietzsche called solitude necessary for creators. Without it, you are only echoing the herd. With it, you can shape something new. The outsider's loneliness is not proof of weakness. It is proof that you are walking a path few dare to walk. And here lies the turning point. Once you see your loneliness as a signal, not a flaw, it becomes fuel. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what can I build from this silence? When you live inside the herd, life feels easy. There are rules already set for you. There is a path already paved. You know what to study, what job to chase, what kind of person to marry, and even what opinions are safe to have. This is what Nietzsche called herd morality, the morality of the many. It is built on safety, comfort, and sameness. It tells you, do what we do, think what we think, and you'll be fine. But the price of that comfort is invisible. You become harmless. And Nietzsche believed nothing was more dangerous than a man who chose to be harmless. Because harmlessness means you never fight for your own truth. You never carry the weight of becoming who you really are. You just dissolve into the background like another copy in a long line of copies. Nietzsche believed that real life begins the moment you turn against this herd morality. That's when you start to create yourself. But this is not easy. It's not just about saying, I'm different. It's about building a new foundation inside yourself, one that isn't borrowed from the crowd. To explain this, Nietzsche gave us the image of the three metamorphoses. First is the camel, the one who carries the weight of all the shoulds and musts that society piles on him. He bows his back and accepts it because he doesn't know any other way. Then comes the lion. The lion learns to say no. He breaks chains, destroys false duties, and dares to stand against the voice of the herd. But even the lion cannot create. He can only fight and reject. Finally comes the child. The child is innocence, creation, a new beginning. The child says, yes. He is able to imagine, to create values, to live out of play and strength, not duty. This journey, from camel to lion to child, is Nietzsche's map of self-creation. It is not about rebelling for the sake of rebellion. It is about burning away what is false, so that something true can be born in its place. And here's the hard part. The herd doesn't want lions, and it certainly doesn't want children. It wants camels. It wants carriers. People who will accept the weight, nod their heads, and march in line. Which is why outsiders, the ones who try to transform, are seen as dangerous. So ask yourself, where are you on this path? Are you still carrying the weight of musts that aren't even yours? Have you learned to say no, or are you still afraid of the herd's disapproval? And most importantly, have you begun to say yes to yourself? When you step out of the herd, the path doesn't suddenly become clear and easy. It becomes harder, because the moment you no longer have the safety of belonging, you are forced to face yourself. And on that path, Nietzsche warned, there are traps. They don't come from the outside, but from inside you. The first trap is ressentiment, quiet resentment toward the world. You feel rejected, so you begin to hate the herd. You start to define yourself not by who you are, but by what you're against. Every insult, every rejection, every cold shoulder becomes fuel for bitterness. But Nietzsche saw ressentiment as poison. The more you feed it, the weaker you become. Because living in resentment means you are still chained to the herd. You are still letting them decide who you are. The second trap is ego, the illusion of superiority. Once you separate yourself from the herd, it's tempting to look back and think, I'm better than them. I see what they can't. This kind of pride feels powerful at first, but it is just another chain. Because it ties your value to comparison. You stop creating and you start performing, waiting for the herd to confirm your greatness. Nietzsche believed this is just another mask, another form of dependence. The third trap is nihilism, the belief that nothing matters. Once you tear down the values of the herd, you may look around and see emptiness. No clear rules, no ready-made meaning. This is the darkest stage. Nietzsche called it the danger of the abyss. Many who reach this point turn back, begging the herd to take them in again. Others collapse into despair, but Nietzsche's answer was not to give up. It was to create, to say yes to life by giving it your own meaning. These traps are dangerous because they look like strength. Bitterness feels like courage. Ego feels like power. Nihilism feels like truth. But each of them is a dead end. Ressentiment keeps you tied to the herd. Ego keeps you chained to their approval. Nihilism keeps you frozen in emptiness. The way out is not to deny the traps, but to recognize them, to see them for what they are. Temptations that wait for every outsider. And once you see them clearly, you can move past them. Because Nietzsche believed the true outsider is not defined by rejection, not trapped by pride, not destroyed by the abyss. He is defined by what he builds out of the silence. If you've come this far, you already know what it feels like to stand outside the herd. You've carried the weight of not belonging. You've felt the silence of loneliness. You've seen the traps of bitterness, ego, and despair. So the question becomes, what now? What do you actually do with this position? Nietzsche never wanted you to stay in suffering. His point was transformation. And transformation requires practice, not abstract ideas, but real steps. Here are 5. Think of them as the outsider's protocol, a way to turn separation into strength. Step 1. Boundaries. Stop proving yourself to everyone. You don't owe the herd an explanation. Every time you defend your difference, you hand your power back to them. Boundaries mean being clear about who gets your energy and who doesn't. If someone drains you, if a situation forces you to wear a mask, pull away. It's not weakness to walk out, it's strength. Step 2. Body first. Nietzsche believed in philosophy with blood in the veins. If your body collapses, your mind follows. That's why you sweat before screens. Train, move, push your limits physically, because discipline in the body becomes discipline in thought. Comfort softens you, hardship hardens you, and the outsider can't afford to be soft. Step 3. Craft. Loneliness becomes poison if you let it sit, but if you channel it into craft, it becomes power. Choose one thing, a skill, an art, a field of study, and give it hours, deep, uninterrupted hours, every day. In a world full of distractions, focus itself is rebellion. Your craft becomes your shield against emptiness, your proof that you are building something real. Step 4. Silence. We live drowning in noise, messages, notifications, endless chatter. Silence is rare, which is why you need it daily. 20 minutes without a screen. Walk, write, sit still. Let the mind settle. It is in silence that clarity appears. It is in silence that you start to hear your own voice instead of the echo of the herd. Step 5. Tribe selection. You don't need hundreds of friends. You need a few who see you. The outsider's path is not about isolation forever. It's about finding people who are walking their own path. Quality over quantity. 2 strong allies are worth more than a crowd of strangers. Choose carefully. Stay loyal. That is your real tribe. Taken together, these 5 steps do something powerful. They stop your difference from becoming a wound and start turning it into a weapon. Boundaries protect you. The body grounds you. Craft gives you direction. Silence gives you clarity. Tribe gives you strength. If you practice this for 90 days, you won't even recognize yourself. The same loneliness that once felt like punishment will start to feel like freedom. The same silence that once felt heavy will become your ally. The herd won't stop existing, but it will stop owning you. Nietzsche believed the outsider wasn't meant to hide or complain. He was meant to transform. And transformation is always built from daily steps, repeated until they form a life. Nietzsche's warning is clear. If you live for the herd, you will lose yourself. You will trade your voice for their approval, your freedom for their comfort. And in the end, you will discover that you lived as a copy, not as yourself. But if you dare to stand apart, the cost is loneliness. The cost is silence. The cost is feeling like you don't belong to this world. And yet, that is exactly the sign you are on the right path. Because you were never meant to be a servant of the herd. You were meant to overcome it. The outsider's pain is real. But it is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. Every moment of rejection, every time you felt like you didn't belong, can be turned into fuel. You don't need their approval. You need your own strength. And strength is built in the forge of solitude. Nietzsche believed that those who dare to live outside the herd carry the seed of something new. Not a copy, not a repeat, but a creation. A new value, a new way of living. That's why he said, the one who feels he does not belong to this world is the one who is meant to help create another. So if you've ever felt out of place, misunderstood, or condemned for being yourself, remember this. It is not proof of your weakness. It is proof of your potential. You were never meant for this world because your task is to shape the next one.